Hello, everyone, and welcome to Yamhill County Truth Seeker Conversations in the Spirit of Truth. Today, I'm very happy to welcome Bubba David King, candidate for Yamhill County Commissioner, Position 2. Bubba, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem. First, I wanted to say congratulations for stepping into the fray. Me personally, I don't have the guts. I don't have the stamina. I don't even know if I have the brain power to pursue an elected office. That must be why I'm retired now. And you have it, so good for you.
Thank you.
Um, I love people who are passionate enough to want to commit to do local public service, and so congratulations on that. Your wife and your other people connected to your campaign seemed delightful, and it was a pleasure to meet them at the recent forum in McMinnville.
Yeah, thanks for putting that on. It was great. I thought it
I
went
think,
really well.
yeah. Most of these questions are related to things that you mentioned in the forum, so we'll
Okay,
just kind of dig a little deeper. You
sure.
first of all, you said you wanted a county transient lodging tax. Yes,
Yeah,
a t
yeah.
a
I
t-
mean, and I think it's just an example, Todd, of different levers that can be pulled to find more resources.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And what I'm not saying, is that I want to tax the county more, right? I want to tax our citizens more. That's not what I'm saying, and I think that can be misunderstood, right? When you say the three-letter word tax, it gets dangerous. But this is a tax that is on visitors, people that are enjoying where we live, and there's no fighting that they're coming here. We can't fight, we can't tell them to go away. So
Right.
we may as well benefit from them the best that we could.
For sure. And I think it's great to be creative about finding money wherever you can because
Yes.
there's not that much available for the county, and the
No.
needs seem to outweigh the income, as was
Yeah.
discussed.
Yeah,
What
for sure.
percentage tax are you recommending on people who are lodging from elsewhere in our county?
So it's already a state, and of course, I should have had that in front of me, and I forgot the numbers. But essentially, it's already a program that's in that's in the state. So a portion of it goes to Travel Oregon, and then a portion of it goes to the county for the general fund, and then a portion of it goes to the DMO, I'm going to forget what DMO stands for. Too many acronyms in my life
For
these
sure.
days. Uh, uh,
Welcome to government.
yeah, let me think about what. But essentially, Visit McMinnville is the DMO, or Taste
Hmm.
Newburgh, or Visit Carlton. So those are what the city has, and so we would essentially have one of Visit Yamhill County. So that's the example there. So
I looked online and I saw different numbers from different counties, 1.8%. Somebody was as high as 4%, but I think the city
some
didn't have one.
Yeah, some places were. It actually became. Some places had already had one historically set up, right, and so they were able to use that number. And then now that the state has kind of put some rules around it, there's numbers there, and it's something like 30 to 70%, right? 30%, 30% goes to the county, 70% goes to the DMO. So of that money, not the
Right.
tax, but
I
of
was
that
going to
money.
say
So
70% tax on every
no,
room.
no,
That would
no.
be
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's a really low tax. It's something it's not very much money, in the end. So
It seems like the county might be able to decide what percent they would want to try to
yeah, and it's a fair
exercise.
tax, right? That's and it's a pass through, right? And that's ultimately what it is. It's not really a big. It's not a huge number. It's not anything that's super exciting,
Right.
but
Right.
it is a
But it,
way. But yeah, it's a way to find money. It's a lever to pull that we currently don't have. So.
what would you think of funding with that new money?
I don't know. I've recently been starting to think about that. I tend to not try to think about what I would do until I'm there, right?
Right. Yep. I understand
And
that.
there's a team of, we would I would gather the team, right? And what's important. What I want to do might not be important for what is for the county, right, and for everybody that lives here. When I go to the city councils, I know that it's like, I mean, I said this at the forum, it's infrastructure and homelessness or addiction, right? And so maybe temporarily the county, I mean, it goes to the general fund, right? So we can use it for whatever. It's not like the lottery dollars that it can only be used for traded sector type of that use, right? And right
Sure.
now, those dollars go to um, pay salaries. So
Hmm.
it's very specific on what that can do. So this can go. It really kind of would be something that takes the pressure off, and I don't think we need to pigeonhole one particular program over another.
For
So
sure.
yeah,
There might be a new county tax and assessment position linked to that new money that's coming in. Someone who can oversee that, and would I would imagine a
you
good
know,
percentage might
yeah,
be needed.
yeah,
But
yeah. Commissioner Bershauer, her kind of response to this was, we have to babysit, what happens to that. And I think it's really sad. I think the professionals that are at Visit McMinnville or Taste Newberg, it's really sad that you think that you would have to babysit these professionals. Yes, we have to hold them accountable, but I think that where their money goes is really, and coming back to us is what's important, right? They get their money. You don't have to. They have a job of what they're, and there's a board and so on, just like every other form of money that goes out there. So it's babysitting professionals is not something that I think is super.
not sure I completely understand. From what I understand, if you were to create a new tax, you would also have to find somebody to oversee the assessment of that tax and then where it goes, unless you were going to put that already on the county's tax and assessment department, which, from what I understand, is already understaffed. So, how would you pay for that additional
I
support
think,
to get that
you
done?
know, yeah, I think one of the things that I think, I mean, a lot of ways I like to think outside the box, right? Is one thing that I think is important. So, um, I know that if there's Airbnbs, right? I used to have an Airbnb and on my property, and um, that organization actually took the money out. It sent it to the it sent it to where it needed to go, right? It took out the state taxes and the federal taxes and so on for us. So and then it
The
sent it where
Airbnb company took
the
care of all that
Airbnb
oversight.
company
That's what
took
they
care of
do.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the service of what you're signing up for. Now, there's other things that don't do that. There's other platforms that don't do that. But thinking outside the box, I think that maybe one of the other DMOs, Visit McMinnville, Taste Newberg, that's already doing a really great job. Maybe we contract with them
Hmm.
and let them handle it and let them do the advertising. And I don't. That's just one idea,
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
But you, the fun thing about this is that when you work with other people, is that there's multiple ideas that come down the pipeline, and you don't have to pick just, my idea is not always going to be the best idea. So,
Right. Right. Yeah.
and
No.
working with people on either side of multiple walks of life or different
Hmm.
types of political views or what have you, I think is really it's the benefit. So, um, and
So,
something that I find myself being very strong suited for.
one last. No, that's good. One last thing connected to that topic. How I, it's probably kind of obvious, but I'll just ask it anyway. How would you go about explaining to the various cities that you will be implementing a new TLT, and do you think it might affect those cities that already have their own?
Well, I don't know the rules around, a county wide. I don't know if it's only applicable to the county property and not into Carlton or something. To me, that they're already paying one, and Carlton is doing their thing. I'm not thinking that that goes into Carlton or McMinnville area hotels, right?
Okay.
Because they already have their own tax and their own, if we're starting to tax companies even more, hotels and stuff, then, they're going to raise their rates and less people come here. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's bad, but we're starting to affect business that way, right? But there are Airbnbs, whether they're meant to be here or not, in the county, right? There are, very large ones, multiple room Airbnbs, nine room Airbnbs that are full a lot of times. So, and I don't think we're talking about a huge number here, Todd. But it's an example of something because it's a space that I've worked in of things that we can do to help with that. So, and I know that there's going to be lots of other examples of ways that we can find funding
Yeah.
to help with the much needed budget. That,
I forgot that when we started, I was going to ask you about farming, just in general. My
yeah,
wife comes from a family of
yeah,
farming, and but they only have one crop. Is it okay if I ask what you farm?
it's great. So my wife and I, we have a raw milk. Is predominantly what we sell. We sell under what's called a herd share.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, you buy a fraction of the herd, and we have a monthly subscription, and then that entitles you to a half gallon or a gallon or how many shares you buy. Right? You can
Wow.
we go in half gallon increments. So it's a very niche market.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people that do it. Not everybody wants to milk cows every morning. So,
Right.
um, but I've done lots of other things. When I first started farming, I cast kind of a wide net and wanted to learn. And I learned that I'm not very good with plants, but I'm very good with animals.
Oh, good. There you go.
And a raw milk dairy was something that I saw being a viable business, not necessarily just a homestead or one thing. The pig's paying to do the meat chicken, and the meat chicken is paying to get the beef cow, and then the meat, it's a cycle, which is essentially how I started out. But then I try to equate most things to business, right? And how am I going to actually make a living, or how am I going to actually turn a profit doing this? And raw milk was one that I had seen, was a model that I saw that I could make money at. So that's what I went after.
And it's popular too. I'm sure a lot of people just
Yeah,
really
yeah.
want raw milk, right?
We often have a waiting list. Yeah. So right now our business is very strong. So
Good.
yeah,
You mentioned that everyone is partisan to some degree, and I appreciate you being honest about that. And
yeah,
that you want to represent the views of all constituents. So, practically speaking, then, how would you land use? Right, that's always controversial because it's going to affect somebody
yeah.
depending on. Okay, they come up and they say, "I want this ruling on this chunk of land." Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. So, how would you stay nonpartisan, let's say, for example, protecting farmland owners,
Yeah,
who are butting up against growth needs, urban growth
sure.
needs that the city or the state might be putting out there?
It's an interesting part of the job, right? Most of our cities in Yamhill County want or need to grow, whether they're trying to or not, or they have a plan for it or not. And that's in some aspects an unfortunate reality that we're faced with, right? I believe in protecting farmland, but I also believe that that the the guy that lives on the edge, the farm that's on the edge, right? His farm is probably suffering, um, and would make a great deal of money to sell to developers, more so, to retire or something like that. but then the next farmer, his neighbor, right, is going to start to experience the same thing, and just that creep starts to have a really hard time. Um, and I think that you have to be. We're put in a position to where we have to make good decisions um, for a larger community, right? And I don't know what that looks like. It's really a case by case scenario. Right now, there is processes, right? For in land use world, right? Of if you want to have a tasting room on 3 acres, there's a conditional use permit, right?
Hmm.
You have to go get that, and you have to prove that you need it, and your neighbors have to kind of be more or less okay with it, uh, right? This is why we
Yeah.
have to be good neighbors. um,
Yeah.
and so there's processes, right? And I don't think that and occasionally we have to weigh in as county commissioners, right? That when it comes to, well, this kind of floats the line. What do you guys want to do? I think we have to make good decisions, and what's providing jobs, and is there a need for that particular property? Does it fit into a urban renewal district? Does it fit into a urban growth boundary? Does it fit into a plan, a master plan? Is there, there's a lot that goes into that, right? And um, is that piece of property going to create jobs? What's it going to be zoned as? So I think that we have to make decisions based on a lot of things, and so to broad stroke it is hard.
For sure. And you're going
And
to be unpopular with somebody on virtually every
always,
decision. So,
always, yes, but I understand that there's needs at the city level, and then there's needs and there's concerns of sprawling cities, right? And I do believe that we live in a not very rural place anymore, but it is rural, and the heart of our community was farming and is farming, and should stay that way, right? I think it's important that
mhm.
farming is kind of stays at the heart of the culture, and that's important to me, right? I mean, I have a lot of farming friends, and I have a lot of farming family members, and that's those things are important to me. And working with cities to find creative solutions to their needs is also important. Sprawling is not necessarily a great opinion. So
Yeah, just drive from on 99 to Portland, and once you hit King City, it's all sprawl. At least it appears that way.
well, I mean,
Anyway,
Sherwood really, other than a natural, than a park there, right? An observatory area. Sherwood to Portland is
yeah,
essentially, you know,
sprawl.
is sprawl, and that sprawl's coming to Newburgh. I mean, it will, it can happen, um, and then it's a matter of time, and and I don't want that to happen, right? I don't want to be Washington County. I don't want to be what that looks like. I want it. I want Newburgh. I want McMinnville. I want Yamhill County to, keep its culture that we have now.
For sure. Well, we could just put up signs that say go somewhere else, but
They
that's not
tried that in
practical.
they
I
tried
know.
that in the '80s with the Californians, right?
Governor McCall.
Yeah, yeah. Go back to California.
Hmm. Hmm.
That didn't work.
But then you
Sorry.
don't get the income we're looking at, so
Right. Yeah.
it's tough. You talked
Yeah.
about getting grants for county programs, and grants are problematic because they disappear. And so, how would you
Sure.
sustainably fill a county budget need with a grant that's typically a one-time project?
I don't know that you're filling needs with grants, right?
Okay.
I think your, or general fund or anything. I think what we're doing is is that there's programs out there to support the needs like addiction and really right now these problems are so big, and homelessness, that they're so big that we have to take every dollar that we can get, right? And put it in the hands of people that do this work very often. I think that money needs to make sense. Um, we don't like to go into bad deals, but I think the problem right now is only getting worse, right? And that, I mean, I said this several times in the forum, right? That money is our money. We've paid taxes. It's in the budget, right? For the state to give back to communities. And I think it's irresponsible to not get that money, um, because then I don't want my money to go to Portland to keep going towards their homelessness problem, right? That's they're obviously not doing a very good job with it either. So I don't want I want our money to come back to here, right? And so I want to advocate for money. And if you don't like grants or you don't like funding resources, budgeting, then go run for a house district, right? Go make the budget at the state level and lower the taxes there. There's a program for, there's a position for that. It's the job of the county commissioner to find resources for our community and then put it to where they're best used.
So sometimes they can be sticky, and I think you alluded to it a little bit. What if the grant has strings attached, like matching county funds, or would mandate that you no longer have this person in the county, the state will be taking control of that particular aspect if you accept this grant? How would you safeguard people like employees in the county who might be affected by
Well,
that?
I'm not looking to get rid of any employees. That's for sure. I think especially at that level, in that department, those people have been here for a very long time and they know the community. So I would push back on that. And I don't think the state is looking to get rid of any other positions as well. I don't think that that's necessarily a the job of the state, and I think that they recognize that. And to say that that happens or is the norm, I think it might be an exception, not the norm. So
Yeah.
and and yeah, there's going to be strings attached, and if we have the money to match, then then sometimes it might be a good investment, right? Because we need to spend that money anyway, right? Not we on that particular addiction, a detox center or something to that effect. So um, I think it's important, right, that we are, and we don't like strings or whatever. Well, let's go negotiate. Let's advocate for that money. Let's have the conversation. Don't turn down money just because it doesn't fit your political compass, right? And I think that work with people. Where can we use this money? Right? Having those nonprofits or the faith-based community. Hey, can you use this money if I go after it? Right? And I think that those are important conversations to have. And okay, if there's some matching, then if we have the ability to do that, we should do that because it will benefit our community.
Yeah. It's tough for me personally. I used to work in a public entity, and there were grants available, and a lot of the ARPA things that came from supposedly
Mhm.
helping us bail out of the problems the government created by the way they responded to the COVID
Sure.
debacle. Um, and I didn't want to always just spend everything that they said I could spend because it was almost like blood
I
money or
don't
something.
like
I don't know.
I don't like spending money just for the sake of spending. We have $100,000. Let's make sure we spend every penny of it, right? If we only need to spend 80,000, then let's spend 80,000 and give it back to the next community, right? Or something to that effect. But
Yeah.
let's. I don't want to spend money, chasing good money after bad. I think that that's irresponsible. But when it comes to addiction services or homelessness problems, there's not really enough money that we can, the needs are so high at this point.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend money just because we have it available, right? I think that that's irresponsible spending.
Yeah.
But I do think it's important that we are mindful. So,
You mentioned addictions and homelessness a lot, and I just have a personal thought about it that always kind of gets me. And it's not necessarily anything that you can do as if you became a county commissioner, but I just want to say it because I want to say it, and that is A lot of these things are, I feel like, are band-aids, and the problems, I believe some of the addictions and the homelessness has been created by a very poor government policy, I would say, from the federal and the state level, and sometimes county,
Yeah, of
not
course.
necessarily. It's frustrating to me, I'll just say, to have to build bigger and bigger programs to deal with bigger and bigger
Bigger,
problem
bigger
that
problems.
the
Yeah.
government could have solved by not having other bad policies that, let's say, put people out of a job or make
I
things
think
too
that's
expensive.
I think that's a fantastic point of view. I mean, I think 110 is a prime example of that, right? Of
Yeah.
just creating policy that made a much bigger problem. The reality is that I can't do anything about the sins of the past, right? We're having to deal with the problem now.
Yeah.
And so, no, I mean, like I said, I don't like taxes just as much as the next guy, right? You know, I, I go, you know, but I spend a lot of time thinking about that, right? How can I best spend my money, right? For my business or my personal income or whatever, right? So, um, but the fact is that we are in the problem now, right? And we can point fingers all day of whose fault it is, and it's probably pretty clear. But the reality is that 67% or something, 57% voted for 110. It's voter education is a problem, right? We were sold a bill of goods that wasn't really what it was meant to be, right? And so I think that's a big problem, and
It
having
is a big
relate,
problem.
yeah,
Well, and I think some of that, I hate to say it because I'm getting into a question I was going to ask later, but some of that bill of goods may have been fed partly by the Oregon Health Authority, which, and the people that inform them, or the CDC or whatever, and just kind of giving wrong information for wrong reasons. I could be wrong there, but I, I,
I can't get into what that looked like.
yeah,
I wasn't truth seeking at that time, so
right,
you
yeah,
know I don't know. The reality is I know where we're at now,
yeah,
right? And I think that that's the problem.
yeah, yeah.
So yes,
Okay. You talked about being a conduit for getting resources for the county departments, and we've talked about that already
interesting.
quite a bit. And then getting out of their way. So how does that look in terms of commissioners having the duty to set policies of county departments? Do you
Yeah,
intend to allow the county administrator and the department heads to instruct you as to how the county should
that's
operate?
that's the job, right? Is
So
that
you don't
I
set
don't want to.
policy?
No, I think we set policy. We set, we help with the contract and so on. But I think that what I don't want to do is micromanage, right? I don't want to micromanage our heads of staff. I don't want to micromanage. Um, I want to know. I want to go get the money. I want to know what it's going to. I want to know who's getting it, um, and I want there to be a clear contract. And but what I don't want to do is what Lindsay's talking about is babysit professionals, right? That's not my job. We have very talented department heads that know what they're doing and they're experts in their field. So
So if I, as a constituent, come to you and I really disagree with several of the things that some of those people are doing, would you represent me or would you let them be in charge?
well, I think I could say, what, you know, what don't you like? Is it something that is a political view? Is it something that is a personal problem that you have? Is it
Right.
let's talk this through, right? Let's, almost mediate. And, did you talk to the department head first? Did they blew you off, right?
Well, I,
You
I
know,
don't know
and then there's a
because I
lot of
think
examples, right?
most people, I
I
don't
mean,
think they go ahead.
yeah, I mean, I think there's lots of examples, right? And I think to kind of broad stroke this is a little bit hard. We are, as elected officials, ultimately responsible, and so and I want to hear what your concerns are, and I would hope that it's important to. This is why it's important to stay civilly engaged, right? But the reality is that you don't ever see anybody at these meetings until somebody's mad. So
True enough.
But paying attention to them, right, and listening to what their concerns is, no matter who they are, I think is important, right? And
Yeah.
I can guarantee you that that's not happening right now.
Okay. I don't know about your guarantee, but um,
Yeah, I mean, I
you've
saw it in the meeting yesterday.
okay.
It is very, very apparent of what's happening.
You want to give an example, or
Yeah,
would you rather not?
so no, I don't have a problem giving an example. I mean, yesterday at the end of the Board of Commissioners meeting, there was a proclamation that the Board of Commissioners rarely do a proclamation. City of McMinnville does like three a week. It's
Wow.
it's a ton, but regardless, they did a proclamation and about National Small Business Week, right? And they invited the McMinnville Chamber to come and receive the proclamation. And they even said, "Oh, we have a chamber here. This is great." I'm the president of the Chehalem Valley Chamber of Commerce, right? I'm also in the room. You can't acknowledge me. I know that I'm running for your seat, but for the sake of diplomacy and celebrating small business, can you not acknowledge? Right? I think we're not on the same side, so there's not access. I see this all the time.
So you wanted to say something and didn't get to? Is that what you're saying?
I think it would have been nice that my chamber got acknowledged, right? But I'm the president and I'm the enemy. I'm the other side, right? So they're
Ah,
not going to acknowledge me, right?
well, I don't know if that might be your perception. I wasn't there. I'll have to look at the video, just
Yeah.
because I forgot. I admit, as a host, I should know better, but I forgot that you are president of the chamber. I remember seeing it. I just
Yeah.
wouldn't
Well,
have
I
necessarily
can
remembered.
guarantee you my opponent has not,
Okay.
or,
Okay.
or Mary or Kit. This is something
Hmm.
we talk about quite a bit.
Huh.
So
Well,
yeah,
you get to talk about it now, and I'm acknowledging you as a member of a chamber.
yeah, yeah. And thank you for National Small Business Week.
Yeah. You have kids in Ewing Young Elementary, you said?
I do, yeah.
I've been there a few times for work related meetings before I retired. So, how did the county's implementation of COVID interventions in 2020, 2021, 2022 impact your kids, you and your
Hmm.
wife? More
Yeah.
specifically, in hindsight, do you think that the lockdown, 6 feet apart, limiting church attendance, remote learning, 2 years of mask requirements, weeks of quarantine if you had flu symptoms, and loss of learning were all appropriate and necessary?
That's a very large question if you're asking me about you and Young. There's church
Well,
and
I mean, it's just
distancing and
you,
so on and so
your
forth, right?
kids. Yeah.
Which part of that do you want me to answer?
Well, just you and your kids, how were they affected? And do you think that all of those requirements were appropriate and necessary, in your opinion, as a parent of kids that were at an elementary school?
I think no. Initially, yes. We didn't know what we were dealing with, but
Right.
there was once we got a little further in, and probably by the start of the next school year, there was a little bit of a more handle on what was going on. Still, quite a bit of fear, but I think that we didn't know what we didn't know at the time, so I'm not gonna you know throw stones at anybody here, but I think we did the best what we could. And then when it started coming in very apparent that who it was affecting and how it was affecting us and so on, I think that we should have used variant, looking at variants and how dangerous is this one and be a little bit more nimble. It's hard to be nimble with a whole district of kids and different needs and some being more sick than not. But I think that comes back into making parents making choices for their kids. And
Hmm. Which you
so
did, right? Did you
we
kind of
did,
came up with
yeah.
your alternatives?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is another example of thinking outside of the box, right? We were able to hire the student teacher that was at Ewing Young. She had just graduated with her conventionals from George Fox, and we split her salary. We gave her a starting teacher pay. We looked it up for Oregon, and we split it between 9 kids. and it was fairly affordable, and it enabled almost everybody in that little group of ours was self-employed, and so it enabled us to be able to keep um, to keep running our businesses rather than being a business person, a lunch lady, a principal, a teacher,
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
aid, and it was, really the school districts at the time thought, we were a bit of an anomaly of what was happening, and I mean, they loved it. They thought that it was the best thing, and I think it gave our kids a little bit of a leg up. Now, I understand we're approached that from a little bit of a place of privilege. And not everybody can do that, but it, at the time, I was looking out for what was good for my family, right? And got creative in thinking, and it's an example of things that of just the way that I think, right? That was my idea. And then I recruited the neighbor kids to come, and and their classmates to come to our house. So
Hmm.
we turned off our Airbnb and we turned it into a classroom.
So if this were to come up again, let's say on a national, world, local, and people are a little more suspicious, perhaps, of what's being touted as fact, and you must lock down, you must get the shot, and it comes from Oregon Health Authority, and then goes to Lindsay Manfrin or whoever is in her position, and you as a county commissioner. Would you be a little more analytical, or would you still step back and let her tell you what to do uh, for in terms of enforcing things
Yeah, I
in the
mean, I don't
county?
think. I mean, I made this. I mean, I feel like I've made this pretty clear. I don't know what I made clear at that forum. I was jittery, but
I
but
understand.
I think that it's really um, what we learned there is, and what I learned in that is that we do get to make our own choices, right? Um, and I hope that the next time this happens, that is considered above all, because I think that the messaging behind COVID, especially going into like by year two, people were exhausted and they didn't believe it anymore,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
so
And
I
yet some
think that,
people at the county level were
yeah.
still hammering it, just still
And
hammering
some
it like it
people
was fact.
still, yeah, some people in Oregon or the country still do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They still mask or whatever, and that's a them choice, right? That's great. Some people, a lot of people still get a booster shot.
Hmm.
Some people still get a flu shot, right?
Hmm.
A lot of people still get a flu shot, and
Oh yeah.
so I think that it's important that we consider individual rights,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not going to um, make any one person do something that they don't believe in. And unfortunately, as county commissioner, you're not making mandates. That's at the state level, and I think that again, it's the relationships. It starts to get really dicey. But I would be supporting someone's individual right.
Right. But you may not go so far as to say this mRNA vaccine is safe and effective. You might just say it's available.
Yeah, but I mean, I think educating people and you know, what it's for and what it's
Right.
doing is important, and then you get
Yeah.
to make your own choices, right? Not
Right.
everybody has their own doctor that they see once a year or every six
Yeah.
months, right? And so
Yeah.
we have to make information available, and we work within a system, unfortunately, right? So
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think going, yeah,
All right.
go ahead.
Are there some things that you'd like to make known about yourself or your campaign that hasn't been out there yet, or is things just rolling along pretty well and people know who you are and you're
Things
getting?
are going well. I think my momentum is really great right now. I think that we're doing a great job, with our messaging, and we're trying to reach as many people as we can. Um, I'm getting ready for the hit piece that's going to come out. Right, it's Lindsay's move, so that's just bracing myself for her countywide mailer. I know that that's part of the gig. I don't know what it will say. I'm guessing it will be something that I'm progressive or something
Mm,
like that. But
mm.
um, you
Well,
know,
you do have funding from what could be described as left leaning, which doesn't necessarily mean that's who you are.
sure,
Uh,
I have funding from very far left leaning to Republicans. You know,
okay,
I mean that's the reality, and we can talk about what that funding all day long,
right.
but the people who have given me money represents a very broad range of people. And some of the progressive money is because Lindsay has vilified progressives,
Mm,
and so they're motivated to get her out at any cost. So it would be silly of me. I can't afford to pick who I take money from in this.
right. No.
The amount of money that I was told I needed to raise to run against Lindsay Bershauer would shock you. So it's an unattainable number.
Mm,
But I feel like we're doing very good with the money that we've received from our donors so far.
okay, good. All right. Well, God bless you and your family and your farm.
Yeah, same to you, Todd.
And thanks for taking the time to be with me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. We'll chat
Okay.
later.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Very good.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, of liberty and justice for all.
All right, ready?